Questions. What's in a question? Well, lots, actually. Questions are part of our daily life, and as curious primates, they are central to our very existence. On today's episode of Wondrous World, we're going to talk about questions and how we use them to learn more about the world around us. What do questions mean to you? When do you ask questions? Why do you ask questions? Questions are our primary tool for learning. Questions have led to some of the biggest discoveries in human history, and we still have more questions to ask. People who constantly ask questions sometimes end up asking questions as a job. These researchers are mathematicians, scientists, engineers, and even some types of artists that are all interested in exploring reality. Researchers like these use questions as a way to find out more knowledge about existence. Let's call them the founding members of the Curiosity Crew. They use something called the scientific method to help answer all of these questions we have about the world. You might have heard of the scientific method before.
Oh.
It's really just a fancy term for organized curiosity.
Ooh.
But have you heard about the scientific method from a scientist? Let's go! To find out what kids like you are curious about in our wondrous world, we visited a classroom and asked students what they're thinking about. Sometimes exploring and playing helps us to ask better questions. And guess what? Researchers have a name for this too. They'll call this making observations or preliminary research. But it's all just having fun and getting to know your subject matter a little bit better. We carried out a small experiment to try to answer the question, how do the shapes of our ears change how some of us can hear? We are going to put on different ears and see how it changes how we hear different sounds. The students made hypotheses and predictions about what would happen, but we'll talk more about that on the next episode. At the end of the experiment, I asked whether the students had more questions or fewer. And it turns out they had loads more questions like these.
Why don't we have different ears?
Would hair in the ears affect how you heard sounds?
Ooh, that's a great question.
I know most ears are made of skin, but the material that the ear was made of, I wonder if that would affect.
Ooh, yeah, so if
the
they're
way
kind
that
of
you heard
stiffer or floppier, that would affect things.
Or even fuzzy or
Yeah.
fresh.
Yeah. How do what students do compare to what scientists do? Well, so this whole experiment that we did was really an exploration, and it's a lot like real science because there's no real answer. We're not trying to find out if we did something right. We're just trying to learn. So each of our experiments just adds a little bit more information and a little bit more information, and then we make guesses and deductions based off of that. Pretty cool, right? Scientific research starts off with a good question, just like the ones you ask. A good question is one that stokes curiosity and is one that usually hasn't been successfully answered. This means that a Curiosity Crew member is learning what no Curiosity Crew member has learned before. Sometimes someone can ask a question that's so big they need help to answer it. In this case, they would need researchers and money to help carry out the experiments that help answer the question. Much of what we learn come from taking classes in school and from looking at experiments that the Curiosity Crew members have done in the past. This is why it's so important to learn about science, technology, engineering, arts, and math in school. What you're learning about now can help be applied to learn new things in the future. In the next episode of Wondrous World, we'll speak with scientists to find out just what they do with questions and how they turn those questions into science. As we follow our treasure map to discovery, we'll stop as many times as we can to answer your questions. And if you have a question that doesn't have an answer, we'll be sure to share that too. Stay curious and enjoy our wondrous world. See you next time!